You've reached Monster 911, and I'm Lance Hightower. I've been taking cryptid emergency calls for over 5 years. If you have a cryptid emergency, please call our toll-free number 866-306-8085. I can help you. What's your emergency? Hello and welcome back, folks, to another amazing show of Monster 911. Hit that subscribe button right now if you've not already done so. I'm Lance Hightower, and I'll be your host once again, and I'm so thankful that you're with me this evening. And if you're new to the show, welcome. All of our social media links are going to be listed down below, and be sure to check out our new website at www.monster911.com. We have some really cool Monster 911 tees, and we're getting some other cool merch, so please go check that out. It's a perfect gift for the researcher that has everything. Now, this show isn't, I repeat, isn't your typical or average show that you'll hear on YouTube. And I truly do mean that. Not just to say that. You see, I've been listening to good people for years, people just like you and I, who have seen something that didn't quite fit in their belief system. In fact, they denied it at first, made fun of it for years. You see, we're all taught as children that monsters don't exist. And it's quite silly if you do believe in them. As parents, we console our children when they awake from a nightmare that all will be well and okay. But when an eyewitness sees an unknown, hairy creature for the first time, it's a flood of fear and adrenaline that erases all of those consoling childhood memories in an instant. If this is you, and you have had some level of an encounter with something you couldn't explain that terrified you, I want to know. I really do. My brothers and I have had our own experiences, and I've had the pleasure and true honor in speaking with hundreds and hundreds of folks, just like you. You can call me anytime. I'll listen. We'll talk it over. I may not have all the answers, but I tell you what, I have a lot of them. I have good common sense that it can help you possibly, as I've helped many people. If anything, it will help you cope and calm. The number here is 866-306-8085. Again, it's toll-free, 1-866-306-8085. You'll be glad you did. It really is good medicine to share. Before we begin this next show, I want to begin with something that I've never had to do before. I want to give a show disclaimer. I seriously want to give this, since I don't recommend to anyone to intentionally pursue what I'm about to share with you. Understand, these creatures are no joke. They are only reactionary. They are real, and they do exist. And they will do whatever's necessary to protect their family members, as you would, as well as themselves. Therefore, use extreme caution when you're considering going out and trying to pursue these creatures. And keep in mind that many eyewitnesses have suffered years of psychological trauma once they witness these creatures. And one more thing, before we get into this next encounter story, please keep in mind, parents, most of these encounter stories are honestly not for kids. As I've said a couple shows back, they sound great, campfire stories to talk about and scare someone, but keep in mind, these are actually true creature encounters that occurred or someone been witnessed by a real person like you and I, and it terrified them, and they're having some psychological distress, and they feel that they need to share, and they call in. So these folks are not actors. So please use some discretion when you hear these, and don't let your children hear them, please. You wouldn't want your kids having nightmares for months. Trust me on this. So during this next show, Brother Bill, Layne, and myself sit down at our remote eastern Oklahoma deer camp, where we've had many strange events occur over the years. We discuss the various ways in which someone could pursue in having a creature encounter. Hey guys, so here we are. This is my third time at deer camp. This is opening rifle weekend, and for the most part it's been pretty tame since I've been here with some of the guys. This is the first time that all the Cryptid brothers, Bill, Layne, and myself have been all together here. We all were able to take off, and so we're all together, and we're just sharing some things that happened. And it's been, like I said, pretty tame until last night.
Yeah.
And So I'm going to actually interview Bill, and he can kind of tell you kind of what happened and last night. So we're going to stay up tonight and kind of do a all-nighter and go out and investigate a little bit just here in camp. So I'm going to turn it over here.
Hey everybody. Well, yeah, it was crazy. I'm excited to tell you guys what happened. So last night, at probably about this time, right now it's what are we setting at, Lance? At 8:30.
Yeah.
So temperature, what are we at right now?
We're probably in the 20s right now.
20s. So similar weather conditions, but I went to go at the edge of the camp to relieve myself, and but before I approached the wood line, I flashed my light looking for eye shine, and my light actually was attached to my hat, and it's a very low emitting light, so it was not powerful at all, but still powerful enough to see a reflection. But I kind of shined the woods, and I saw probably a ping pong ball shaped, maybe a little bit bigger, circular eye shine, but just one single focus of light, of a reflection. And I kind of took me back a little bit, and I thought, okay, well, I'm seeing something. Maybe that's water reflecting off of a leaf. So I looked down and then looked back, and I still saw it. And I realized that that is likely an eye. And again, I just saw one. And the level, the height of this eye, this shine that I was seeing, was at the 10-foot mark. And it was right behind a large pine tree. So it was actually, what I suspect anyway, a squatch looking through the pine tree from behind, and just like in a tunnel where there's no limbs or anything.
Do you want to go out there and just show them right now?
Absolutely.
Let me get a couple things here, and we'll just head out there, and might as well.
I got my powerful light here now.
Here we got Layne here.
Hi.
You don't get to see Layne very much.
No. Kind of occasionally slip in and out of the camera, so it's going to be exciting. Yeah, that's what Bill was talking about in regards to some eye shine at a pretty specified height. So I'm going to go out there and take a look at it.
Let's take a look here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I don't know how much you see here, but we're gonna go. This is the edge of camp here. We're all.
I'll show you kind of what I.
We got a generator going here in the background.
So I kind of stopped here, and again, these were less powerful lights than I have now, but I just kind of scanned the wood line, and when I got to here with my light, and again, my light was on my hat. I saw the eye shine at about the level of where I'm focusing my beam right now.
Okay, let's take a look.
So, right through.
There's a car. So it's kind of hard to see through that hole right there. That's kind of high.
Yeah.
That is about 10 feet.
So, like I said earlier, I intentionally put my light down, looked down and looked back, and I still saw it. And I didn't see any blinking, I didn't hear anything, I didn't smell anything, but it did actually freak me out. And so...
Well, you came running at the tent, you said, guys,
yeah.
I got eye shine.
Yeah, and exactly.
So it was back here. If we go back here, this is...
I got a lot of briars.
Yeah, I'm not wearing my briar... Okay, I'm wearing my briar pants. Hang on a second.
Yeah, there's pretty rough over here. It's thick.
Okay, there we go. So there's still, you put a glow stick right there, and you were seeing This eye shine right in here somewhere.
Yes.
Right in that. Right about here.
So,
Right in here.
it could have been, standing inside of the tree or back behind it here, but, I don't necessarily see, when we check for, there's no turned down grass or anything or prints.
Well, everything's so beat down.
Yeah, it's already beat down.
That's the hard part, and it's wet.
But see, what I did here, we've had some encounters, folks have called in before that have mentioned that they like reflective blue wrappings. And so I happen to have chocolate that had that. I didn't plant it, but I put as you can see, a glow stick. It was yellow, and I put it right here. And then I said, hey, buddy, here you go. Here's your present.
Yeah,
But
well,
obviously they haven't taken it.
no.
How high do you? Where exactly? How far in height
It
is
would have
that
been
hole?
in this hole somewhere right about
So, yeah.
up through here.
Upper 10 feet level.
Like right about in here. It'd been right about in here.
It's just so thick, Lance, as you can see. Look at this. Pan down through here.
Yeah.
This is...
This briars. I just want to get a close up here of some of this.
Look at this.
This briar right here, it's loaded with thorns. You've got micro thorns all over this, and it catches on every bit of clothing
Yeah.
you have.
It's like a wall, basically.
And
We're right in the
It's
middle
right in the middle of it, and no human being can go through that. It's just virtually
It's
impossible.
like a...
It's just a wall of briars. You would have to have a machete and have briar-proof clothing to get through this stuff. But yet, these creatures, these Bigfoot, have no problem. They just go right through it. Of course, they have the strength and the size, and I think a lot to do with what their skin must be extremely tough, as well as that hair is a good factor. It allows them to move through that
Yeah.
with that hair.
I think it probably sheds off easy for
I
some
think so.
reason, too.
I think there's a huge benefit.
So when I went and got you guys, and we came immediately back, like within a few minutes at least, and I did this. I did the same thing. And you remember, Lance, where you had your light and you were shining on the trees. I said, "Go ahead and put it down. Put your light away. Let me do exactly what I did." And I did that in that reflective circular area. Again, about probably bigger than a ping pong, maybe close to a racquetball, maybe between the size of a ping pong ball and a racquetball. Wasn't there. So that's very suspicious.
Yeah,
of
well,
eye shine.
yeah.
Kind of probably looking just outside of the tree, right on the edge of it.
One half is behind the tree, the other
Yeah.
half isn't. Interesting.
Well, it's interesting to me that even though obviously I didn't see it, as far as the reflective state of the eye, but obviously I came in here early today when I was hog hunting. Of course, looking down through here, just getting a first glance of this trail, and I'm thinking how thick, like you guys were talking about earlier, but the briars, just absolutely horrific. Some of these areas when you can walk through, you got your hunting clothes on, and you just get caught up in this stuff.
Yeah, you can't.
You take a machete to it, and it's so thick. But it's interesting how they can just glide through this stuff, all this undergrowth, and be able to come up behind a pine tree such as this one, and just observe, obviously, the camp.
Well, they're using the cover. Obviously, we've got a generator going. We've got maybe 5 or 6 vehicles here. So right about here is where the camera went crazy. I was in the process. Layne was talking, and I was trying to communicate. There's some things going on. We have a generator, and boom, the camera just stops. And I'd never had this happen before. This is a relatively new GoPro. I probably used it a total of 4 times. Maybe I've used it 10 hours worth. Never had a problem with it. It operated flawlessly. And all of a sudden, the screen locked up. I couldn't even turn it off. The back of this GoPro is a digital display, unlike the old ones didn't have that. So the new ones have all the bells and whistles, is really nice. And it just froze. And then it went to a green screen, which I have no idea what that is. And it's not that the GoPro is cold. I don't keep my electronics in a cold environment. It was actually charging in my dad's trailer, which was warm. And then I brought it to my tent, which I had a heater going. It was warm. So I brought that right into the tent that we were all sitting down. So it wasn't because it was cold or anything. And then I just started filming. But it stopped right there when I was talking with Layne. And Layne said, "Lance, you've never had that happen before to this GoPro?" And I said, "No." And he goes, I think this could be some infrasound going on right now. It could be close out here since this just happened." And I didn't think about that initially, and I started thinking about this. This is strange. I couldn't shut the camera off. It was actually starting to heat up a little bit, and it was on this green screen. I didn't know what that was. So I told the guys, I said, Layne, I'm not filming. I said, I don't know what's going on with the camera. I've never had this happen. So I said, let's go ahead and go back to the tent. Let me see if I can fix this. So what I had to do to shut it off, I had to pull the battery and then wait a second and put the battery in, and then everything operated fine. Didn't have a problem after that. So I just thought that was really, really strange. I've never had any electronics do that before. But the only thing that I can chalk it up to, it could be just a happenstance. But again, I've never had this happen before to this particular camera. But being that it happened right close to the time where Bill saw this eye with this light, it was reflecting off the light coming from his light that he had mounted on the forehead. It's very likely that this could have been some infrasound, and it just really affected my camera. And so to the point where I couldn't even shut it off. But again, we moved away from that area, went into another tent, pulled the battery, put it back, and everything, again, operated flawlessly. So let's go back to the part back in the tent where we continue filming.
Infrasound that they used before they attacked to kind of like disorient their prey.
Yeah.
So is it beeping up here?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's red beeping.
So, yeah, some of the, earlier when I reported, when we first came out here, I talked a little bit about that. When I was coming out here, and it was just Dad and I, and then Dad, Joe, Alan, and it was just us. I didn't, and I'm the only one in the tent, with the exception of Alan. So you can hear a lot more in the tent, and that was one thing that I really wanted to talk about to people, is that if you want to get, well, let's back up just a little bit, because what I said is that if people want to get the full experience of an investigation, truly, if you want to get the full experience, tent camp.
Yeah.
Don't be in a hard shell trailer. Now, with that being said, this is not for everybody. Would you agree?
Yeah.
This is not something that people should take lightly, because the potentiality for tent poking, for something rustling around the outside, something falling on you, all those things are possible, would you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, but if someone really wants to get the full effective investigation, not only going out in the woods in the day, what everybody calls boots on the ground, and looking for prints, breakovers, tree structures, and besides that, you're looking for skeletal remains of animals, things that just don't add up, don't make sense. Certain sounds, and sometimes the absence of sounds. No one ever talks about that. The absence of sound is a very common feature in investigation. So one of the things that I was just trying to impose on people, if you want to get the full effect, tent camp. Now granted, we're a bunch of guys here, so we're not just us out in the woods here. We're at deer camp, but I think it's still a really good setup because we're causing a lot of smells, a lot of noise.
Yeah.
We got generators going, and so we are the activity that draws them in. And literally, there's not much out here where we're here right now.
Right.
I mean, the closest town is a dot, and then Broken Bow, Oklahoma, is 20 miles away.
Well, we've had more success by having sights and sounds, so to speak, of Squatch when we've just been in our camp and not compared to when we go out in the field.
Yes,
right?
that's true. That's true.
So I think a few reasons for that. They are using the cover of the night for concealment, and the fact that for the most part, especially that magic kind of range we talk about from like say 2 to 5, well, what are we doing most of the time? Sleeping, right? So they understand that they've got more success by figuring us out, and they're curious and to come through the camps because that's happened by what happened to Layne, which we have that on an episode where it actually pulled up the corner of the tent, and Layne was sleeping, and it woke him up, and he didn't have a light bright enough to see what was going on. And of course, what was it last year? And we're in a different location this year.
Yeah, this is the first time they cut our area. That I was kind of bummed about it. They cut our area, but here's the thing: we're not that far from the old location.
No.
And these things are traveling miles and miles. We can only imagine at night, during the day, through the week, through the year. So we're, as the crow flies, we're probably 4 miles, maybe.
Yeah, give or take.
4.5 miles, and that's nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really nothing.
Well, what the audience can't. Here's the thing about it. There are thousands upon thousands of acres of pines out here, and the ecosystem out here. And I was talking to Bill about is that the ecosystem is such a rich environment. And obviously, not only they have the availability of the pines for cover, but there's so many food resources. There's fresh water. There's these creeks that fork into other creeks. There's just so much game, the abundance of game and cover, and it's a rich environment, but it's a remote environment, And also, if you're born and raised in an environment like this, most of us, and the audience can relate, we live in bigger cities, bigger towns. We're used to that environment. We're used to the noises that surround us. And so when we come up to here, or when we come down to this part of the state,
right,
it takes a while for us to remove the mindset, the city or the lifestyle and environment behind, to come here to to calm down, to start understanding our senses, our wilderness senses. But these creatures, it's interesting that there's so many questions. But for me, because I love to hunt hogs, these creatures are so highly intelligent that they understand how to move away from the human activity. Now, especially since it's high-powered rifle or deer season, that there's so much activity, human activity out here, but yet there are so many thousands of acres.
Yeah.
And, you're liable to see anything, but yes, it is kind of, nobody would really want the tent poking at night. But yes, that can happen.
But that's kind of, when you agree that I think after us being involved like we are now, that's for us, we want an experience like that to happen.
Absolutely.
We're looking for that to happen so we can experience what other people, because how many, we've done now, I don't know how many hundreds of interviews, and every time we do an interview, we learn. And not only I as I tell people, we learn not only from the interview, but we learn going in the field.
Yeah.
And just like Layne said it, we were talking about earlier, every time you go on a hunt, you learn a little bit more what you don't have or what you don't need.
Mm-hmm.
More what you don't need.
Right.
And so it's the same thing on investigation. The more that you do, the more you find out what I want to have happen so I can experience what other people have said that they've experienced. Is it repeatable? Is it replicatable? And what did it do? What was the context of what we were doing? How late was it? Because the more we can learn about other people's experience and our experience, we can give better advice to people. Because I think that's what what we're starting to become more known for, is actually giving, not just hearing the story, but we like to help people cope with what they saw. And at the same time, that coping part is giving advice. Good, sensible advice that doesn't have to be lethal. It's non-lethal, something very simple sometimes. Simplicity actually works many times, depending on the circumstance, where they live, what region. But here what we've noticed is that the Bigfoot in this area doesn't seem to be apparently aggressive. At least it hasn't been to us.
No.
They've been more inquisitive. They've been more curious.
I often wondered if they, depending on the campground and who's in the campground, that they basically, because they're here, first of all, they're going to observe. And when they're going to observe, they're going to take note of each and every person that they lay eye contact on. And basically, who's aggressive, who's not aggressive. If the whole bunch is just if it's just a group of guys that are laid back, I don't think they would be that aggressive, because we're not displaying any negativity, any aggression amongst each other in camp.
Mm-hmm.
Even because most guys, when they get together, and females too, for that matter, but when you get together, you're just relaxing. You get away from the phone for the most part, your job, city, the town, the stresses of the norm life, and we come here and you let it all hang out for a little bit, but we're laughing, we're having fun, we're just laid back. And sometimes at some camps, how people can get rowdy.
Mm-hmm.
Other camps are rowdy and
they're shooting guns at night.
Shooting guns at night for who knows why.
Right.
Being idiots.
And which we've encountered that.
Oh yeah.
The last couple of nights we've had
Running
some.
their dogs off, or I think there's maybe a few different types of listeners. The listeners that, like you kind of alluded to, Lance, that want to do this, they don't know where to start, but they know to go out in the woods, but from that point, what do? What could increase your odds to maybe have an encounter in a safe manner? That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see one, but you could maybe see if find a footprint or hear something.
I think in a safe manner, we can talk about that. I think the first thing you want to do is don't try to completely go in camo and a ghillie suit. I think that I do believe you could sneak up on them. I do believe there is a possibility by happenstance, and I don't think they would be very keen on that they didn't notice.
They'll be more aggressive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think,
Startles them.
yes, that's it. It startles. No one likes to be surprised. So I think just going out in your everyday wear, I think you don't have to be yelling, but I think just using normal tones and voice would be another way to do it. I think, and this is a big with me, having your hand, right now I'm holding this GoPro in my hand, but having nothing in your hand, having your hands empty. Don't hold anything in your hand, and most people that we see, especially on YouTube, everybody's got a camera in their hand.
They're walking down a trail like, hey guys.
Yeah. And I don't think these beings, I don't think they understand.
That's a threat.
It looks like you're pointing something in the way. To them, they don't know what this is. So
it's circular, right? Well, what's also circular at the end? A gun. I mean,
guns, and so it's one of those things where I'm thinking having cameras, chest cams mounted on your hat, or the shoulder mounts. Now they have this GoPro, and then have one in some people. Their technique is having one forward, one in the back on the shoulder, and they've got stabilizing devices now built in the cameras, so you'll be smooth. So I think it's the other thing, having hands completely free.
Yeah.
Using normal voices, don't necessarily be ghillied out in camo, and don't show a huge amount of firearm threat. Take a firearm, but maybe kind of conceal it in some way, possibly.
Right.
And again, what we're talking about is the potential for an encounter. Now, this sounds odd because people are like, I don't want to have an encounter. Are you out of your mind? We're only talking to people that are going to be relatively skilled out in the woods. They don't go by themselves. That's the other thing. Don't go by yourself. You don't want to be a David Paulides case and go missing. So always go with 2 or more people. And this is always assuming that you've got good knowledge of the woods. You maybe have a topo map. You know the area. You know how to read a compass. You, especially if you're staying the night in a remote area, you better know the area well. Tell your loved ones and friends or whoever where you're going to be. All those things, of course, are implied, are just implied. But these, and again, the implication is you've got casting material you're taking with you. You've got a camera device, more than one camera. You've got extra batteries, and again, that you need to go through some scenarios. When you were, overseas, Layne, I mean, you had backups to backups plans.
What do they call it? Contingencies.
You have contingencies. And so if plan A doesn't work, what's plan B? And if plan B doesn't work, what's plan C? So you should go out, and you need to do this for if you get hurt. If I break my leg, how am I going to get out of here? So a serious injury to yourself that's non-Bigfoot related, right? But what are you going to do if something's poking on your tent? Do you want to, A, just start shooting at it indiscriminately, which is no, because it might not be a Bigfoot. It might be a human being. B, yell. C, let it continue to happen and see what happens. D, unzip your tent calmly and go outside and see if you can have an encounter that way, which that's kind of what we do. And then you take the film footage and you're running out there with it and see what happens. But you try to do it as quickly, calmly, without hurting yourself and not waking up the whole camp.
I think it needs to be, and this is how I view it, and I think we all do, it's enjoyable.
It does.
We expect an encounter of maybe hearing footsteps. I've heard footsteps around my tent before. When Layne had his episode where it actually pulled the tarp open, although that was unexpected, we do in some way expect this stuff, and because it's happened consistently while we've been in camp, and again in that kind of magic time frame between 2 and 5 in the morning. And so,
I think it's a good point, that expectancy, and that's what it is overall with us. We expect things to happen, but when it happens, we have contingency plans.
Right.
And that's what I want to impose upon people. Whatever that is for you, have a contingency plan that you've thought through. That okay, if that happens, what am I going to do? If that happens, what am I going to do? If I'm out going, relieving myself, and I'm confronted with a bit, what am I going to do?
Right.
And I know it sounds very strange.
We've all thought about it.
Yeah, we've all thought about it. And I mean, I think about it every time I go out. And right now in camp, one of the things that we do is we leave the lights on around camp. So if you come out and it's early in the morning and you need to relieve yourself, you're not going to step on a thorn bush, and we've cut some trees around here. You don't want to have a hole in your foot from stepping on some type of a root of a plant, and you want to see, because there's bears in the area too. There's just not Bigfoot. You've got bears, you've got cougars, you've got wild hogs. And even though that most of them are afraid of you, you never know, you'll get a bizarre one that could charge you. So it's a good thing that what we do, and if I leave my tent and I got to relieve myself, I just strap on my my sidearm real quick, and I just keep it by the bedside. I just strap it on, go out there. Have I ever used it yet? No, not yet. But at least I have it. I have it.
Well, it is when you have an understanding of things, what to expect. Expect maybe, like we said, tent poking. Expect maybe you might hear footfalls. Expect, I guess, what was it? Rocks being kind of tumbled, walked on.
Yeah.
So these are things you need to listen for. And so if someone's like, well, I really want to get into this. I want to learn more about it. What's the best way? Well, number one, you have to be in the location. You have to be
Which there's a
camping.
lot of
A
locations.
lot of locations, and it's the magic hour, and you just need to be quiet and listen.
Quiet and listen. Yeah.
Set your alarm for the 2 in the morning, between 2 and 5.
Wake up.
And just listen. And that's really where you start. And then out in the field, certainly there's more skill that's involved about what to look for, and regarding sign and tree breaks, and you want to look up high. And Layne and I today, in fact, you pointed it out, Layne. There was it was dried and dead, but it's a limb that had been twisted and broke. You could see the twist in it, and it was broke, and it was probably 12 feet high. He pointed it out.
Yeah, I believe it was down that first trail.
Was it down here? Okay.
Yeah, down the first trail that we went. Basically it goes down to the bottom of the creek area, but it's so heavily thick with briars. But before you get to that, the wall of I just so happy. That's another thing. That's a good point. When you're walking out, in regards to where you're at, basically in a wooded area, we tend to not look up. We tend to, as human beings, look forward, and obviously look at our height, our eye level in front,
right?
And let's sweep from side to side. Very rarely do we look up, but you got it in perspective. If you're excessive of 8 to possibly 12 foot tall, you're going to be up there where obviously 8 to 12 foot tall and snapping limbs off, not at 5 foot level or a 5'6" level or what have you. So, but yeah, we saw that actually this morning, where it looked like they were busted off. They were snapped, and they were pretty high. So I mean, what else would do that? I mean, obviously I can't. I'm 5'5". So I mean, these were what,
10, 12 feet high.
10, 12, at least between 8 and 10 feet high and excessive
Wow,
height.
really?
So yeah, you could tell that they and not the limb actually busted off from the tree itself, but further out.
Gotcha.
The limb,
Yeah.
possibly where it walks, and it's snapping. Now, my encounter years ago, when that Bigfoot come across that wheat field and hit the wood line and come up the wood line across on the North Canadian River in western Oklahoma, that thing was busting. Now, I did not witness it, but I could hear it, and I knew what it was doing. It was making a hell of a lot of noise, busting branches back and forth. So that's interesting what we saw this morning.
Yeah, I saw one on the way out when I was hunting the last weekend by myself. I was driving on the road, and what caught my eye was a fresh break, because everything around here right now is autumn colors, of course being the fall, and so something that is a fresh break sticks out,
Right,
like a sore thumb. And I was driving down the road, and I backed up, and I saw this, and it was about 9 or 10 feet tall, and it was a cedar that was broke over. And it was probably at least 4 to 5 inches in diameter. And I'm looking at that going, now, that is just broke, clean, fresh right there, and there's no other trees around there that's broken. Nothing. It's just right there, and I thought, okay, what could do that? There's only one thing.
Yeah.
Really, when it gets down to it, those are things that you need to be mindful of. What's the logic, truly the logic, and what else could this be? Well, not human. Humans are not that tall, even the tallest man. Even if he were able to reach that, which he, may be, but what's the likelihood of him being out here in this part of the country and having the strength? It's just unlikely.
You have to look at it too, like people would think, well, a tree break, come on, this happens all the time, there's storms. But really what you have to do when you're looking at the evidence is really put effort into actually explaining it. Okay, think about snowfall. All right, well, these pine trees, they're not going to hold snow that much. some of these pine trees.
Right.
And will a storm, will a storm like twist or break that off where there's no trees around but that one, right?
Right.
You have to think through this. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you have to kind of go back and explain and really dive into that, because there's more questions when you actually dive into, ask yourself, what could do that?
Yeah, and I think, you have where a person that's not had an experience, they just overlook it real fast. And they sometimes just overlook it and they forget about it and they go, oh, okay, well, whatever. And then they go about it. But, when you really when you see something that doesn't fit, that's when you need to start asking yourself, what could this be? This is interesting. And so when people need to go out and investigate, you just need to have an open mind, be open-minded, and don't be closed-minded to what you observe, what you hear, and what you smell. And so you need to take it all in. And Layne was talking about, looking in the trees, because there's a lot that you could be missing walking around, not looking up in the trees. Yeah. So, okay, well, this kind of wraps this up here. I wanted at least to get some footage here of just us talking here, not necessarily around the campfire. It's a little brisk tonight. It's real damp. But at least just chat a little bit about, getting Layne on film, since we don't get to chat with him too much. And talk a little bit about what it takes to investigate, what people need to do, be mindful of their surroundings, and be safe at the same time. And, again, the full fact, if they want to have a tent camp, do that rather than a hard shell trailer, because you'll lose a lot of sounds in a hard shell trailer or a cabin. It will impede a lot of those sounds, whereas a tent, you can hear everything. Everything. If they use a generator, then shut the generator off so you can really hear the full effect. Like you said, the magic hours between midnight and 5 a.m. And of course, right now where we're at, it's hunting season. People are running dogs out in this area, chasing hogs and deer, and so it's just a highly active area right now. We hear it all. We'll probably hear some tonight, but all right, brothers, thank you very much, and I appreciate you. It's been fun being here, and we're gonna do some more tonight. Left. Yeah, we're gonna probably we're gonna be listening tonight. And then tomorrow we've got, I'm trying to get a deer tomorrow. If I don't, I may stay one more day. I don't know. But, we'll keep our eyes peeled. And we just want people to be safe out there, so we want to give them some advice. And that's what I wanted this video to be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Till next time, guys.
All right. Take care.
Take care, guys.